Commander Kira Sato pressed her face against the small window of the emergency pod and watched her own ship fly away. The metal hull grew smaller and smaller until it was just another dot of light among the stars. Her hands shook as she realized what had just happened. Her crew had left her to die. The pod was cold and dark. Only the red emergency lights worked, casting strange shadows on the walls. Kira touched the control panel with trembling fingers. The display showed her worst fears. Life support would last 3 days. Maybe 4 if she was careful. The communication system was broken. Her science officer had made sure of that before they threw her out. She remembered the moment everything changed. They had found something amazing near the old battlefield. Ancient technology. Older than any civilization they knew. The energy readings were unlike anything in their databases. Kira had been so excited to study it and share the discovery with the galactic community. But her crew saw something different. They saw money. Lots of money. The Zelani engineer had spoken first. "This could make us rich beyond imagination," he had said, his 4 arms gesturing wildly. "We could sell this to the highest bidder." The Thracian pilot agreed. "Why share it with everyone? We found it. We should keep it." Even her trusted science officer, a calm Valdorian she had worked with for 5 years, had turned against her. "You are too honest, Commander. Sometimes, honesty is foolish." Kira had refused to claim the discovery for personal gain. She believed in sharing knowledge with all species. She thought her crew understood this about her. She was wrong. Now she floated in space with no way to call for help. The nearest shipping lane was weeks away. No one would find her here, in this empty region between star systems. The irony was bitter. She had spent her whole career exploring unknown places, and now she would die in one. The pod shuddered slightly. Kira checked the readings again. The temperature was dropping faster than it should. Something was wrong with the heating system. She grabbed her toolkit and opened the maintenance panel. The wires inside were a mess of different colors and alien designs. Each species built things differently, and emergency pods used parts from everyone. She found the problem quickly. A connection had come loose when they ejected her. The heating coil was barely working. Kira knew how to fix it, but she needed to shut down other systems to save power. She turned off the artificial gravity first. Her body floated up from the seat, but she could move around more easily now. Working in zero gravity was tricky, but Kira had trained for this. She reconnected the heating wire and rerouted power from the emergency beacon. The beacon was useless anyway with the communication system broken. At least now she might last 4 days instead of 3. As she worked, Kira thought about her crew. The Zelani engineer had been with her for 2 years. He always complained about his low pay, but never seemed serious about it. The Thracian pilot loved to fly and often said money did not matter as long as she could explore the stars. The Valdorian science officer had saved her life once during a dangerous survey mission. How had she been so wrong about all of them? The ancient artifact they found was beautiful. It looked like a crystal flower made of pure energy. The scans showed technology that bent space and time in impossible ways. Kira had dreamed of studying it properly, of learning secrets that could help every species in the galaxy. Instead, her crew saw only profit. She finished the repair and sealed the maintenance panel. The temperature was already rising. That was good, but the air recycling system still worried her. It was making strange noises, like something was grinding inside. Kira knew she could not fix everything. The pod was old and had been through too many emergencies. She strapped herself back into the pilot seat and looked out at the stars. They were beautiful and cold and endless. Somewhere out there, her crew was selling the greatest discovery of their lifetimes to whoever paid the most. Somewhere else, other explorers were making honest discoveries and sharing them freely. And here she was, dying alone because she refused to steal from the future. Kira had always believed that different species could work together. Humans were new to space. Only a few hundred years since first contact. Most aliens thought humans were naive and too trusting. Maybe they were right. Maybe trust was a weakness in a galaxy full of greed and selfishness. But she still could not bring herself to regret her choice. Even now, facing death, she knew she had done the right thing. The artifact belonged to everyone, not just to whoever found it first. The pod's computer beeped softly. Kira looked at the display and frowned. The sensors were picking up something strange. There was movement in space nearby, but nothing showed on visual. The Redan, the ship that emerged from the impossible tear in space, was unlike anything Kira had ever seen. It was clearly human in design, with the clean lines and simple shapes that humans preferred. But it moved wrong. It did not fly through space so much as step through it, appearing and disappearing like someone walking between rooms. The hull was dark metal covered in patterns that seemed to shift when she was not looking directly at them. Lights ran along the edges in colors that had no names. As Kira watched in amazement, the ship moved closer to her pod without using any visible engines. There was no exhaust, no energy signature, nothing to explain how it traveled. Her pod shook gently as the strange ship locked onto it with some kind of tractor beam. But this was not like the beams she knew. Those pulled objects through space with force. This felt more like space itself was bending to bring her closer to the ship. A voice came through her communication system, speaking clear English with a slight accent. "Emergency pod. This is Captain Minjun Park of the human vessel Void Walker. We are here to help. Please prepare for emergency transport." Kira could not believe what she was hearing. The communication system was completely broken. There was no way anyone could contact her. Yet somehow this human ship was speaking directly to her through destroyed equipment. "How are you doing this?" she asked. "My communications are offline." Captain Park's voice was calm and steady. "We have ways of reaching through the barriers between normal space and other dimensions. Your pod systems do not need to work for us to speak with you. Are you injured?" Before Kira could answer, she felt a strange tingling sensation. The air around her began to glow with soft blue light. She found herself floating up from her seat, but not because of zero gravity. Something was lifting her gently through the pod's hull, as if it were not there at all. The next thing she knew, she was standing in a clean white room aboard the human ship. The transport had been so smooth she barely felt it happen. A tall man with kind eyes and black hair approached her. He wore a simple gray uniform with captain's insignia. "Welcome aboard the Void Walker, Commander Sato," Captain Park said. "I apologize for the dramatic rescue, but time is important. Your former crew has made a serious mistake." "How do you know my name?" Kira asked. "How do you know about my crew?" A woman with brown skin and short dark hair stepped forward. She had the look of a scientist, with intelligent eyes and careful movements. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, our science officer. We have been tracking the energy signature of the artifact your crew discovered. It is far more dangerous than they realize." Kira looked around the room in confusion. The walls seemed normal, but she could feel something different about this ship. The air itself felt alive with possibility. "What kind of technology is this? How did you find me?" Captain Park gestured for her to follow him. They walked through corridors that were both familiar and strange. Everything looked human-made, but there were devices built into the walls that she could not identify. They hummed with power that seemed to come from nowhere. "We call it void walking," Captain Park explained as they entered a large room with windows showing the stars. "Most species travel through space by pushing their way through it. We learn to step outside of normal space-time and move through the gaps between dimensions." "That is impossible," Kira said. "No one has ever found a way to leave normal space and return safely." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "Humans have a talent for finding new ways to do impossible things." We see connections that other species miss. Our brains work differently, more flexible, in some ways. They reached the bridge of the ship. Kira saw crew members at control stations, all human, all working with equipment that looked both advanced and strangely simple. A large screen showed her emergency pod floating in space where she had left it. "We have been watching your crew for the past day," Captain Park said. "They do not understand what they have found. The artifact is not just ancient technology. It is a key that opens doors better left closed." "What do you mean?" Kira asked. Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. A young man at the sensor station turned around with fear in his eyes. "Captain, we are getting massive energy readings from the artifact site. Something is coming through." The main screen changed to show Kira's former research ship floating near the crystal artifact. But something was wrong. The space around the artifact was turning black, like ink spreading through water. Shapes moved in the darkness, things that hurt to look at directly. "What are those things?" Kira whispered. Dr. Vasquez's face was grim. "They are called devourers. They are the reason we developed void walking technology. We have been preparing for this day for 20 years. "I do not understand," Kira said. "How did you know this would happen?" Captain Park turned to her with sad eyes. "Because we have fought them before. Humans encountered devourer remnants years ago on a dead world. We chose not to tell the galactic community because we knew they would panic. Instead, we decided to prepare in secret." The screen showed her former crew's ship trying to escape, but the dark shapes were faster. They moved through space like living shadows, reaching out with tentacles made of pure void. Kira watched in horror as they began to surround the research vessel. "We have to help them," she said. "We will," Captain Park replied. "But you must understand something first. The galaxy is about to face the same enemy that destroyed countless civilizations before yours ever existed. Your crew has awakened something that has been sleeping for millions of years." Chief Engineer Raj Patel spoke up from his station. "Captain, the devourer energy is spreading. They are using the artifact to tear holes in space itself. More of them are coming through." Kira felt cold fear in her stomach. "How many more?" Dr. Vasquez checked her readings. "According to our calculations, this could awaken devourer forces across the entire galaxy. We are looking at an extinction-level threat." Captain Park's voice was steady despite the terrible news. "This is why humans developed our technology. We have been the galaxy's secret guardians, fighting small devourer outbreaks before they could spread. But this is different. This is what we have been preparing for." The ship began to move, reality bending around it as they prepared to enter void space. Kira held onto her chair as the stars outside began to stretch and twist. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To save your crew if we can," Captain Park said, "and to begin the war that will decide the fate of every living being in the galaxy." The Void Walker emerged from dimensional space near the ancient battlefield to find chaos. Kira's former research ship was trapped in a growing cloud of living darkness. The Devourers had poured out of the artifact like oil from a broken container, spreading their corruption across normal space. Through the bridge windows, Kira could see the creatures clearly for the first time. They were not solid beings but holes in reality itself, shaped like enormous jellyfish made of absolute void. Where they touched normal matter, it simply ceased to exist. They did not destroy things so much as erase them from existence completely. "How many crew members were on your ship?" Dr. Vasquez asked. 7, including myself," Kira replied, her voice tight with worry. Despite their betrayal, she did not want to see them die like this. Captain Park studied the sensor readings. "Their ship is still intact, but barely. The Devourers are testing its shields, learning how to break through. We have maybe 10 minutes before they succeed." "Can we save them?" Kira asked. "We can try," Captain Park said. He turned to his crew. "All stations, Prepare for combat approach. Chief Patel. Power up the void disruptors. Dr. Vasquez. Monitor dimensional stability. We are going in. The human ship moved toward the battle in a way that made no sense to Kira's eyes. Instead of flying through space, it seemed to slide between the cracks of reality. One moment it was beside her, the next it was kilometers away. Then suddenly it was somewhere else entirely. The Devourers could not track its movement because it was not really moving through normal space. How do you fight things like this? Kira asked, watching as one of the creatures reached a tentacle toward a nearby asteroid and simply made it disappear. Very carefully, Chief Engineer Patel replied from his station. Normal weapons pass right through them. Energy shields do nothing. The only way to hurt a Devourer is to attack the void spaces they occupy. That makes no sense, Kira said. Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. Nothing about Devourers makes sense. They exist in the gaps between dimensions, in spaces that should be empty. Human brains are good at thinking about things that should not exist. It is why we are the only species that learn to fight them effectively. The ship shuddered as Captain Park brought them closer to the research vessel. On the screen, Kira could see her former crew inside their ship. The Zilani engineer was frantically working at his controls. The Thracian pilot was trying to power up engines that would not respond. The Valdorian science officer was scanning the creatures with equipment that could not understand what it was seeing. They are terrified, Kira said softly. They should be, Captain Park replied. But fear will not save them now. Only we can do that. The Voidwalker suddenly appeared directly between the research ship and the closest Devourer. Weapons that looked like twisted metal-fired beams of impossible light. Instead of energy or projectiles, they shot pure emptiness at the creatures. Where the void disruptor beams hit, the Devourers writhed and pulled back as if in pain. Target the largest one first, Captain Park ordered. It is acting as an anchor for the others. The human ship danced through space in ways that hurt to watch. It appeared and disappeared, fired its strange weapons, then vanished before the Devourers could respond. But there were so many of the creatures, and more kept pouring out of the artifact. Captain, Dr. Vasquez called out. The artifact is opening bigger tiers in space. I am reading Devourer signals from 12 different systems across the galaxy. Kira felt her heart sink. They are spreading? Each time they consume matter, they grow stronger, Captain Park explained, as he ordered another attack run. Strong enough to tear new holes between dimensions. Your crew did not just find an artifact. They found the master key to every Devourer prison in the galaxy. The ship shook as a Devourer tendril passed through their shields like they were not there. For a moment, part of the bridge simply was not there anymore. Then the ship shifted dimensions slightly, and the missing section returned as if nothing had happened. How long have they been imprisoned? Kira asked. Millions of years, Dr. Vasquez replied, while monitoring her instruments. Ancient civilizations fought a war against them long before any of our species evolved. They won, barely, by trapping the Devourers in void spaces between dimensions. The artifacts were meant to keep those prisons sealed forever. Another human ship appeared near them, identical in design but with different markings. Then, another. Soon there were 6 human vessels surrounding the area, all moving in impossible ways, all firing void disruptor weapons at the growing Devourer swarm. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, a voice said over the communications. All ships form defensive pattern around the civilian vessel. We need to extract those crew members before the Devourers adapt to our tactics. Who is Admiral Chen? Kira asked. Captain Park's face was serious. She commands the human void fleet. We have been secretly building these ships for 20 years, preparing for the day the Devourers returned. We hoped it would never come. The rescue was brilliant and terrifying to watch. The human ships worked together like dancers, appearing and disappearing in perfect coordination. They created a corridor of safe space, leading away from the artifact. Captain Park's ship materialized directly next to the research vessel. "Transport initiating," Dr. Vasquez announced. "Bringing them aboard now." Blue light surrounded the research ship. Moments later, Kira's former crew appeared on the bridge, looking confused and terrified. The Zilani engineer collapsed to his knees. The Thracian pilot was shaking uncontrollably. The Valdorian science officer stared at the humans in amazement. "How did you do that?" the science officer whispered. "Our transporters could never work through devourer interference. Our technology works differently than yours," Captain Park said simply. "We do not fight the interference. We step around it." The Zilani engineer looked up at Kira, with shame in his 4 eyes. "Commander, I am sorry. We were wrong. We were so very wrong." Before Kira could respond, alarms sounded throughout the ship again. On the main screen, the ancient artifact was pulsing with blinding light. The space around it was tearing open like fabric, revealing an endless void filled with countless devourer forms. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez called out. "The artifact is going critical. The prison walls are completely failing. I am reading massive devourer emergence across 17 star systems now." Admiral Chen's voice came through with grim determination. "All ships, fall back to minimum safe distance. This is what we trained for. People, signal the other fleets. It is time to reveal ourselves to the galaxy." As the human ships retreated from the expanding void tier, Kira realized the true scope of what was happening. Humanity had been secretly protecting the galaxy for decades, preparing for a threat that other species did not even know existed. Now that threat was awake, and only the humans were ready to fight it. The war that would determine the survival of all galactic civilization had just begun. 3 hours after the rescue, Kira stood in the briefing room of Admiral Chen's flagship, the Horizon Walker. Around her sat representatives from every major species in the galaxy, all connected through emergency communications. Their faces showed confusion, disbelief, and growing fear as Admiral Chen explained humanity's hidden war. "For 23 years, we have been fighting devourer outbreaks in secret," Admiral Chen said. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but her voice carried absolute authority. "Small incursions, single creatures that escaped their prisons. We destroyed them before they could spread and reproduce." The Valdorian ambassador spoke first, his voice shaking with anger. "You hid this from the Galactic Council? You had no right to make these decisions for all of us." "We had every right," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "When we tried to warn the Council 20 years ago, you called it human paranoia. You said we were making up threats to gain political influence. So we decided to handle the problem ourselves." Kira watched the alien faces on the screen. She could see the moment when denial turned to understanding. The evidence was impossible to ignore. Devourer attacks were happening across 30 star systems now. Entire colonies were going silent. Space itself was being torn apart by creatures that should not exist. "How many ships do you have?" asked the Thracian Prime Minister. A reptilian female with bright, golden scales. "Currently operational? 247 Void Walkers, across 12 fleets," Admiral Chen said. "We have been building them in secret shipyards in empty space, using resources we gathered from dead systems." The numbers hit the room like a physical blow. 200 ships using impossible technology, built in secret, while the galaxy thought humans were just naive newcomers, still learning about space travel. Captain Park stepped forward. "We did not want to deceive anyone. But every species we approached reacted the same way. They either did not believe us, or they wanted to study devourer remains for weapons research. Both responses would have made the situation worse. So you appointed yourselves as our protectors without asking permission?" The Zilani Trade Council representatives' 4 arms moved in gestures of outrage. "How dare you make that choice for us?" Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots appeared across the map, each one marking a devourer outbreak. "This is happening right now," she said. 37 systems under attack. The number is growing every hour. Without our intervention, your species would already be extinct. The room fell silent as the representatives stared at the spreading infection of red dots. Kira's former science officer raised one hand, hesitantly. "What exactly are these devourers?" he asked. "Our instruments could barely detect them. They are what remains of a species that tried to evolve beyond physical existence," Admiral Chen explained. "Millions of years ago, they succeeded too well. They became creatures of pure entropy, existing in the void spaces between dimensions. They consume reality itself to survive." "And the ancient civilizations that built the prisons?" asked the Korathon Emperor, a being that looked like a living crystal formation. "All dead, Doctor," Vasquez said simply. "Every single species that ever fought the devourers directly was completely wiped out. They won only by working together and sacrificing everything to build the prison artifacts." Kira found herself speaking up. "That is why humans developed void-walking technology. You cannot fight creatures that exist outside normal space using normal weapons." The representatives looked at her with surprise. Many of them knew her reputation as an honest explorer. Her word carried weight in the scientific community. "Commander Sato speaks truth," Admiral Chen said. "Human brains work differently than yours. We have something you call intuition, the ability to understand things without logical proof. It allows us to perceive and navigate void spaces that would drive other species insane." "But humans are so young," protested the Altarian High Priestess. "Your species has only been in space for a few centuries. How could you develop technology that we have not even imagined?" Captain Park smiled sadly. "Because we had to. When we found the first devourer remains on that dead world, we had two choices. We could run away and hope the problem never got worse. Or we could learn to fight monsters from beyond reality. We chose to fight." The strategic displays updated again. More red dots appeared on the galactic map. The infection was spreading faster now, jumping from system to system as the devourers grew stronger. "How do we stop them?" asked the Valdorian ambassador. "We work together," Admiral Chen said. "Human ships can fight devourers directly, but we cannot be everywhere at once. We need your conventional fleets to evacuate civilians and defend key systems while our void walkers engage the enemy. And if we refuse to cooperate?" The Zelani representative's voice was challenging. Dr. Vasquez updated the display to show projected spread patterns. "At current growth rates, the devourers will consume 50% of the galaxy within 6 months, 100% within 2 years. Cooperation is not optional anymore." Kira watched the faces of the representatives as they absorbed this information. Fear was replacing anger and pride. The reality of the threat was finally sinking in. "What do you need from us?" the Thracian Prime Minister asked. "First, evacuate all civilian populations from the infected systems," Admiral Chen said. "Second, establish defensive perimeters around critical worlds. Third, give our science teams access to your best research facilities. We need to find ways to destroy the source artifacts before more devourers escape." "You want us to trust you completely," the Korathan Emperor said. Captain Park stepped forward again. "We understand your anger. But look at the evidence. For 23 years, humans have fought and died to protect your species without asking for anything in return. We lost good people in battles you never knew happened. We spent our resources and our lives keeping you safe." Kira found herself standing up. "I was betrayed by my own crew because of greed," she said. "But humans rescued me from certain death and asked for nothing. They could have left me to die and focused on the bigger threat. Instead, they saved me because it was the right thing to do." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then the Valdorian ambassador spoke. "What do you need us to do first?" Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. Broadcast warnings to all ships and colonies in the affected sectors. Tell them to avoid any ancient artifacts or energy signatures they do not understand. And prepare your fleets for the largest military operation in galactic history. As the emergency session continued, Kira realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, every species was being forced to work together against a common threat. And the species leading that cooperation was humanity, the young race that everyone had thought was too naive to understand the harsh realities of space. Outside the windows of the flagship, more human void walkers were arriving from hidden bases across the galaxy. Ships that bent reality around them, crewed by people who had chosen to bear an impossible burden alone rather than let others suffer. The war for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was no longer hiding. The final battle began 6 days after the emergency Galactic Council meeting. Devourer forces had reached the core systems, threatening the capital worlds of every major civilization. The combined fleets of 43 species gathered at the nexus point, where space itself was thinnest between dimensions. Kira stood on the bridge of the Void Walker, now serving as Admiral Chen's tactical coordinator. Her job was to translate between human void-walking strategies and conventional military thinking. It was the most important assignment of her life. "All fleets report ready," came the voice of the Thracian fleet commander over the communications. Conventional forces standing by. Through the bridge windows, Kira could see the largest military gathering in galactic history. Thousands of ships, from dozens of species, all working together for the first time. But at the center of the formation were the human void walkers, dark ships that seemed to bend light around their hulls. "Sensor readings are off the scale," Dr. Vasquez reported. "The Devourers are massing on the other side of dimensional space. They know we are here." Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays. "How many?" "Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. They have been growing stronger with each system they consume. This will be their main assault force." Captain Park turned to Kira. "Are the evacuation fleets clear?" Kira checked her coordination board. "All civilian populations have been moved to safe systems. Military support vessels are in position. We are as ready as we can be." End quote. Space around the nexus point began to darken. Not the normal darkness of empty space, but something deeper and more wrong. The stars themselves seemed to dim as reality prepared to tear itself apart. On every ship's sensor display, massive energy readings spiked beyond measurement. "Here they come," Admiral Chen said quietly. The void opened like a wound in the universe. Devourers poured through in numbers that blocked out entire sections of space. They were larger than before, fed by the matter they had consumed across dozens of star systems. Some were the size of battleships, others dwarfed entire moons. "All conventional fleets, begin suppression fire," Admiral Chen ordered. "Target the smaller ones. Do not let them spread out." The non-human ships opened fire with every weapon they had. Energy beams, missiles, particle cannons, everything in their arsenals. Most of the shots passed through the Devourers without effect, but some weapons proved partially effective. Quantum torpedoes could disrupt their forms temporarily. Gravitational weapons could slow their movement. "It is working," Kira said with amazement. "They are actually hurting them." "Not enough," Captain Park replied grimly. "We need to reach the source artifact. As long as it exists, more Devourers will keep coming through." The human void walkers began their attack pattern. They disappeared from normal space, reappearing inside the Devourer formation. Their void disruptor weapons carved holes in the enemy ranks, destroying creatures that conventional weapons could barely touch. But there were so many enemies. For every Devourer the humans destroyed, 3 more took its place. The alien fleets fought bravely, but their weapons were barely holding the creatures back. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez called out, "I am detecting the source artifact at the center of the formation, but it is protected by the largest Devourers. Our ships cannot reach it." "Relieve it." Kira studied the battle display. The artifact was indeed at the heart of the enemy formation, surrounded by creatures the size of small planets. Any ship that tried to approach would be destroyed before it could fire a single shot. "We need a distraction," she said. "Something to draw the big ones away from the artifact." Captain Park looked at Admiral Chen. Some kind of understanding passed between them. "There is a way," he said, "but it will require everything we have." "Explain," Admiral Chen ordered. "We phase the entire Voidwalker fleet into dimensional space at the same time," Captain Park said. "Create a resonance cascade that will destabilize the void barriers. It will give us one shot at the artifact, but the energy release will destroy most of our ships." The bridge fell silent. Kira realized what he was proposing. The humans were willing to sacrifice their entire secret fleet to destroy the source of the Devourer invasion. How many ships would survive? Admiral Chen asked. Dr. Vasquez ran calculations on her console. Maybe 20%. The dimensional feedback will tear most of the Voidwalkers apart from the inside. And if we do nothing? The Devourers overrun us in 47 minutes, Dr. Vasquez replied. They are too strong now. We cannot stop them with conventional tactics. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Send the order to all Voidwalker captains. Explain the plan, and ask for volunteers only. Kira watched in amazement as responses came back from every human ship in the fleet. Every single captain volunteered immediately. There was no hesitation, no debate, just instant acceptance of a mission that would almost certainly kill them. This is insane, she whispered. You are talking about sacrificing 200 ships and their crews. Captain Park smiled sadly. This is what we trained for. What we have been preparing for since the day we learned the Devourers existed. We always knew it might end this way. All ships report ready for resonance cascade, came the voice of Captain Min-jae Kim from the Soul Walker. It has been an honor serving with you all. Similar messages came from every Voidwalker in the fleet, captains saying goodbye to each other and expressing pride in their service. Kira felt tears running down her face as she realized she was watching an entire generation of human heroes prepare to die for species that had doubted and questioned them. Execute the cascade, Admiral Chen ordered. Every Voidwalker in the fleet disappeared from normal space at exactly the same moment. The effect was immediate and devastating. Reality screamed as dimensional barriers collapsed across a massive area. The largest Devourers were pulled into the void spaces between dimensions, their forms torn apart by forces beyond comprehension. At the center of the chaos, a single human ship materialized next to the source artifact. The Voidwalker, damaged but intact, fired every void disruptor it had directly into the ancient prison device. The artifact exploded in a burst of light that erased it completely from existence. The portal to the Devourer dimension slammed shut with such force that space itself rang like a struck bell. The remaining creatures, cut off from their source of power, began to fade and dissolve. Dimensional cascade complete, Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice shaking. The portal is sealed. The artifact is destroyed. Casualty report? Admiral Chen asked quietly. The communications officer's voice was barely a whisper. 197 Voidwalkers destroyed. 43 ships survived, most with heavy damage. The battle was over. The Devourer threat had been ended, but at a cost that left the surviving humans in stunned silence. In the space of 5 minutes, humanity had lost most of its secret fleet and thousands of its best people. Admiral. The Thracian fleet commander's voice came over the communications. On behalf of all our species, we offer our deepest gratitude and respect. You have saved the galaxy. Similar messages poured in from every fleet in the combined armada. Apologies for doubting humanity. Praise for their sacrifice. Offers of assistance and alliance. The species that had once seen humans as naive newcomers now recognized them as the galaxy's greatest heroes. Kira looked out at the debris field where so many brave humans had died. Admiral Chen wiped tears from her eyes. Now we rebuild. The galaxy knows the truth about the threats that exist in dark space. Next time, we will all be prepared together. Captain Park nodded. And next time, humans will not have to bear the burden alone. As the Voidwalker limped back toward friendly space, Kira realized that something fundamental had changed. The galaxy would never again see humans as the naive young species that trusted too easily. They had proven themselves as protectors willing to sacrifice everything for others. The age of humanity hiding in the shadows was over. Their true work as guardians of galactic civilization had just begun. GS made no sense. According to the computer, something very large was approaching, but it was not using any known type of engine. Space around the pod began to shimmer like heat waves on a hot day. The stars themselves seemed to bend and twist. Kira stared in amazement as reality itself appeared to tear open like fabric. Through the gap, she saw swirling colors that hurt to look at directly. Something was coming through. Something impossible.